Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Okay, this is part 2 in what would a woodsman do about a vehicle. Now, as I mentioned in the first one, being a woodsman is a great deal about the wood skills, the woodscraft. But getting from there to here, getting out there, and also helping out our fellow woodsmen and hunters, fishermen, etc. in the field, you need a more rounded education than just how to build a fire, how to pitch a tent. You need to understand your transportation, your conveyances, things like that. So, let's talk about our vehicle for a second. Now, in a recent one I talked about where mine, a idler pulley, got the bearing finally gave out on it, and the belt jammed up. So I had to go ahead and cut it as preventive medicine to keep it from breaking on its own and causing me to be stranded on the side of the road, as it caused the other belts that were involved to get fouled up and broke. What are some things you need to be able to think of? And what this is going to focus on is what you should carry, what you should do to prepare yourself, and how you can troubleshoot so that when you pick up that phone and you call your buddy back home, you can tell him basically what you're going to need to get you going again. Whether it's got a wrecker into me, or if it's I just need this to be able to get on the road again. So let's start. The basic idea of all engines, no matter how new or old they are the three concepts of the four points. They need compression, which means the actual rings and seals coming up and down. 2, they need air to make it work. 3, they got to have fuel. And 4, they got to have a spark to get that going. So, let's say you come up to your vehicle, you've been out doing whatever, and you stick the key in, or a modern car, you press the button, and it doesn't start. Nothing. Completely blank. Okay, let's troubleshoot. First, pull on your headlights. Do your side marker lights and your headlights actually come on? That tells me the battery is still functioning. If I turn those on and nothing comes on, that tells me I have a dead battery. Something's been left on. Maybe the kids charged too many of their electronic devices over the weekend and drew the battery down now that it's below the threshold where it cannot crank. Okay? That's why we should carry a portable battery jumper, or at least a set of battery jumper cables, so that we can have someone else use their vehicle's power to get our vehicle to crank up and regenerate its own. But if I turn the lights on and no lights come on, it's a dead battery. If I turn the lights on and they do come on, leave them on and press the starter button or turn the key. They immediately and go out. That is a bad battery. That's a short within the battery that it can appear to be good until you put under load. You put a strain to it and then it just collapses. And then the minute you give it a few seconds, it comes right back. That's an internal fault within a battery. And so it's called a shorted out battery, or a dead cell battery, that it cannot handle the load. It can handle turning on the lights, but when you press the button, it kind of has a nervous breakdown and dies right there. So again, you contact, that will not jump, and that will not take a battery jumper and crank, because it's not holding the charge. It'll drop as soon as the vehicle tries to crank. So you're just going to waste your time. Time to call for help and tell them to bring you a battery. Okay, let's say that the lights do come on, you hit the button, and it does not immediately go out. Okay, turn the lights off to save strength. And on modern vehicles, you're going to have distributor packs that run directly to a spark plug. A good thing to have is this little device that they sell them at the auto parts stores, that you unplug a spark plug, plug it in, and then plug the spark plug back on it, and there's a glass or plastic chamber there that you can see the spark. Okay? They're not very expensive. Get one of those and carry it so that when I turn the key, if I see a spark, I know that my electrical system is working. If there's no spark, that tells me there's something in the way. Underneath the hood, quite often you'll have, like on this older vehicle, relays. That's a fancy word for a big switch. And what it means is that you don't have to have big heavy wires carrying the current. The relay does the job. You turn your key and it closes like a automatic thing, closes and lets the power flow through. Those relays may have gotten fouled, corroded, bad, whatever. And so under your hood you're going to have relays, and you'll look on your wiring diagram that's normally up under here or down here or something, and you'll have a thing that says relay. Mine, which is an older vehicle, but let me show you that right quick. Okay, right here, and it will say horn relay, fuel, etc. Those are the relays up under that cover, and all it is like this blue thing you're seeing right back here. These are relays. Those are switches that you can wiggle them, bump them, whatever, and may get the car to crank. It's just something to try right quick. Okay, here's two more relays right here up under the edge. All of these on this side are the relays. Sometimes due to heat, corrosion, or whatever, the relays get a little sticky and they don't want to do their job of closing and opening. So if you take a screwdriver or something, go along, go tap, 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 sometimes it'll allow it to crank and get you back home to a mechanic to actually let them look at it and troubleshoot what it is. I have seen that many times where I've had friends and stuff have a newer vehicle than mine that we'd get out there and I'd go to bumping on the relays or bump on the starter actually, and suddenly it fired right up because something just wasn't lining up. Okay, so it's one of those things you can try in the field. Now, if I've got spark, then the next question is fuel. Okay, now in older vehicles where I had a key, quite often this model has an electric fuel pump. And most vehicles today almost all vehicles today that I'm aware of are electric fuel pumps. That means if it's real quiet and if you go to start, you should hear a hum coming from the back of the car wherever the fuel tank is. That's the fuel pump starting to push fuel. It's pushed up by a fuel line up on top of the engine to a, we'll call it a reservoir. And that reservoir is where your injectors pull the fuel out to actually spray into the piston holes like a, insect repellent sprayer. That's how it puts it directly in the cylinder. Old vehicles had carburetors, but this, it does it. The pressure fuel comes up to there, and then it will return and go back to the tank, so it's a continuous loop of it. So when you turn the key on, you should hear a little huh, and then it quits. Not a buzzer up front, but something in the back of the car going huh, and then it quits. That's it pressurizing that loop. Once it's pressurized, it kicks off until demand, so it doesn't flood the car. So if I go to turn that key on, or I press that button and I don't hear that it means my fuel pump's not pumping. It can be a relay, can be a fuse, can be the pump's gone out. But at least when I make my phone call, I've got an idea. See? So power, will the lights come on? That's battery. If the lights come on and everything seems to be there, but I push the button and nothing happens, that could be the starter. See? So I can tell them I believe it's the starter or I believe it's a dead battery. Okay? Next, we've talked about fuel coming in. We're not going to take the whole car apart to figure it out. But the fact of, if I can't hear that back there, that's a good indication it's a fuel problem. Okay? Those old guys like me that carry a can of ether, where you could spray it in the intake and it would crank up and run for just a second and go dead, and you can spray it again and it'll crank up and run, that tells you it's a fuel problem because the fuel pump ain't getting enough fuel up there, or the injectors ain't turning on, whatever. At least you got something you can tell the mechanic. Okay? Now, stepping back from that, that's a way to troubleshoot so that whenever I make a phone call and tell them what I believe the problem to be. If I've got power, I know it's not the battery and it holds up. If I turn the lights on, I hit the key or hit the button and they immediately go down, I can tell them it's a battery problem. I need another battery. You get your buddy to bring a battery. Okay. Your own jumper may work depending on what kind of electrical problem you got, and one of those plug-in jumpers may allow you to crank. If not, maybe another vehicle sitting there with jumper cables may allow it to crank, or it simply is not going to do it till you get it diagnosed of what it actually is and all these electronic components. Okay? Now, oil. Oil pressure light comes on and tells you I don't have any oil. You should always carry oil and water if you're going to be going into the woods of the correct type, just to top it up. You could spring a leak going over these rough roads coming in where everything's flexing, and suddenly it goes to leaking a little and you're losing oil. Oil is blood for an engine and can destroy it very quickly if it runs out of it. So if the low oil pressure comes on, you need oil to put into it. Same thing, carry transmission fluid and check your transmission fluid before you go in and before you come out, getting back out if you had a real rough road. Always check it. There's a dipstick somewhere up under the hood. Familiarize yourself with your owner's manual of where to check the fluid levels. Okay? That handles the bulk of this up here. Now, one more thing. Radiator. Right here. Radiator hoses. Most of them are closed systems, and like this old vehicle is a, for that time, modern, it has the closed system, and we have a reservoir right here that we add water to. This should be full by itself, where we filled it up, and then you put additional water into the reservoir. So whenever you're going to start a trip, check that reservoir and make sure there's fluid into it. Also, it's very cheap to just, when it has not been running and it's dead cold, if you can't lay your hand up here and grab a hold of it and it's cold, don't open that cap. It's under pressure and it will burn you because the water does not boil because it's under pressure. But having run this vehicle now for 30 minutes getting here, if I grab this cap and turn it, suddenly the water's going, it's like a soda you shaking up, and it's scalding hot. Don't do that. See, if your temperature starts going way up, you notice where you're at and it starts going up and you get a warning light, I'm getting too hot. You need to pull over, let it cool down until you can grab a hold and hold on to the actual hose, etc. Then taking a big water rag, check and see if there's any water left in the reservoir. Putting it over, holding straight down pressure, unlock the cap and kind of burp it a little bit so it doesn't blow off, you see what I'm saying? But burp, 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 and then add water into the system. Find out why it's leaking. Again, a little bit of crack somewhere. Plastic radiators can just decide they want to start leaking. Hoses can decide they want to do it. A piece of debris may have bounced up and went into the grill and damaged something. And under that pressure, you're slowly losing a little bit. So you need some sort of water container to carry with you. A gallon of antifreeze is great to carry so that I can top up into the reservoir, and also I can pour that in and take other water source to fill it back up to try to get me back home. Now, if you got a little pinhole and you're going in the way back, carry stop leak or something. Now the old timers, I don't know about modern cars guys on this, but the old timers, we used to carry black pepper, because you could dump a whole can of black pepper into the radiator and it would plug up any leak long enough to get you home, and then you'd go get it fixed. See, but I don't know about modern systems, but I know in my day when I was doing a lot of four-wheeling into the backwoods, I carried a can of pepper for that. One of them little things. So make sure you got water, make sure you that. Now, your battery. Your batteries are either closed cell, which do not have water ports on it, or they have these ports on them like this that show you're supposed to top up water. There is a maintenance that you do every couple of months. Pop that open and add distilled water to it to make sure that it's up to the right level. Go online, educate yourself on what to do, as well as the corrosion around the terminals can keep a vehicle from cranking. So if Remember, I had to go turn them lights on and no power. Come look at them terminals. Carry with you the proper tools to open it up, and a cleaning tool. They sell them at the auto parts house to clean the terminals with and then reattach it. A lot of times it's simple corrosion. That it fired up fine and we drove out here and been here an hour and now I go to crank and nothing. It's corrosion that just reached that magic threshold where it decided not to do it. And it's something super simple and you can be back on the road in 10 minutes. You just got to think and realize. Okay? Now, let's move on to another topic. Okay, tires. You, of course, should always have a spare tire. If you're going into the backcountry, I recommend a full-size spare tire, not that little donut, because donuts do not handle off-road very well. And if you got in here on these big, huge mudslinging tires, and it was hard to get in here on them, you ain't getting out of here on that donut. So therefore, I recommend a full-size spare tire. Check the air in it often. Make sure that it's good to go before you start a trip. Okay? Now you need to also carry some sort of patch kit with you. And what that is, if you go to the auto parts house and ask them about it, they have this tool set that's not expensive. And it's these strips of rubber with this T-handle device so that you can look around and see that you got a nail like right there sticking out of it. You can grab hold of that nail with a pair of pliers, pull it out, take this tool, push it in the hole, rough the hole up, and then take the other tool and force down in it with them strips of rubber, turn it around and pull it out, and that's called a plug kit. That's what you're going to ask for, a plug kit. It allows you to plug a hole in this and then air the tire back up. Carrying one of them small inflators or even a bicycle pump. For years I carried a bicycle pump on it to get enough air pressure into it, and of course a can of Fix-A-Flat is a great thing too, to be able to get me some air pressure to get me back out if I have a flat tire. Here's another little point that a lot of people don't think about. Here's another little point a lot of people don't think about. The lug nuts. Now you take your car in to that auto dealership or that tire place or whatever, and you get them brand new tires put on it or whatever, and that guy out there, that gorilla with that air engine going, and he's putting like 200 pounds of torque on them nuts because of liability. He doesn't want them to come off no matter what, so he way over torques these things. Well, what does that mean, Blackie? It means that it's so difficult to get off in the field. They put so much torque on that, you can't break them loose with your little old tire iron. So you're out here and yeah, you got a spare tire, and these things are on so tight that you put that little old short lug wrench you've got on there and you can stand on it and bounce on it with your whole weight and you can't make it unlock. Been there, done that. Learn from me. So, for the vehicle that you're going to be going into the backwoods on, make sure that you can get the lug nuts loose on it. When I go and have a tire worked on, I tell him, I'm going to be going in the backwoods. I only want like 150 pounds of torque on these. I don't want 300. And as soon as I get the vehicle and he says, okay, it's sitting there, I go out and I take a lug wrench and I put it on and see if I can break one loose. And if I can't break it loose, I pull right back around and I say, break them loose. Because I was in 18 miles in to a place one time, and there was a piece of an old metal fence post that was in the mud, and it just ripped a tire when I rolled through it. I mean, just, you couldn't have done it better with a sword. And so I had all the tools to change the tire, and with every ounce of strength I had, me putting my full body weight up on that little bitty old short lug wrench, bouncing up and down, hitting it with everything I had for an axe or whatever, I couldn't break them lug nuts loose. Could not. Because they had such ridiculous torque on them. So, learn from my mistake. Be sure you can break them things loose. Either carry the gear to break them loose if they're that tight. Like a black, notice what I'm saying here, a black deep well 1/2-inch drive socket of the correct size to fit that lug nut, and then one of the long breaker bars that go 1/2-inch drive onto it. That you can get more length, more stuff, and I've even had it where I've had I used to have a high lift jack, and we'll get with jacks in just a minute, that had a 3 foot, that big around diameter steel bar for the handle. I could slide it over that, giving me a 4.5 foot handle. I could break them loose with that because length equals leverage, etc. But that little short rod they give you with the factory, it's more meant for show, really. It goes on, yes, it fits, but like I said, if those lug nuts are blood tight, you're not breaking them loose. Now, while we're down here, let's talk about 4-wheel drive for a second. 4-wheel drives are fantastic, but you should put your vehicle into 4-wheel drive at least once a month and just drive around the block once or twice. You know, nothing high speed, because the gearboxes and the ratios that do the 4-wheel part for your random daily driving, you're not in 4-wheel drive. Well, those gearboxes are not being used. They're just floating along. But in some models, and I don't know what you've got, some models, they got seals and stuff in it that kind of dry out if it's not used in 4-wheel drive. When it's in 4-wheel drive, it's lubricating itself. Whenever it's not, it's just spinning. And so once a month, do a little maintenance, put it into 4-wheel drive, and just drive around the block for 5 minutes. That's it. So you lube all those seals out so they don't dry out and give you other problems down the line, okay? And to make sure it will go into 4-wheel drive, this one has automatically locking hubs. You don't have to get out here like the old thing and turn a button. It automatically locks. Let's make sure it locks before you really got to have it. You're in the mud like that, and then the thing won't lock. Do it a test before you go out. If you're going to be in the thick stuff, always test before you commit. Okay. Tools to carry, things like that. A light of some kind. Something that works without me having to hold it. A flashlight is good. One of these cheap little lanterns is even better, because with this I can sit it down to do repairs in the night, change tires, things like that. Flashlights being round are very convenient, but do they hold or do they roll off? See, I found just something cheap like that works very well. A 4-way, I like the folding one, lug wrench that I can lock on to torque with if I need to. Tape, duct tape, and electrical tape. Tool supply. In here I have all kinds of little joys. Remember that thing I told you that you plug in where the spark plug goes and it flashes? There's one of them. That end plugs in to the spark plug or to the cable somehow, and there's the other end that plugs in. I had put this up on the distributor before in order to see if it arcs or not. That will go flash, flash, flash when I turn the key to tell me if I got a spark. There's one of the tools to clean the battery terminal. I have tire pressure gauges. I have a 4-in-hand of the different size screwdrivers. I have a complete socket set in here of the things I'm going to need. A couple of universal wrenches. A thing to change the fuel filter. Extra hose clamps for both the radiator hose and the small hoses in case something breaks, etc. None of this is brand new high quality tools. I went through the local pawn shop and picked up every one of these tools for less than 20 bucks to fit this. The box was like 8 bucks. This stays with the vehicle. I don't put high dollar stuff in case it gets broken into. Back here I have a small floor jack right there, and there's the handle for the floor jack. Many of these vehicles come with a type of bottle jack that you screw and it telegraphs out. My particular vehicle right here has relatively high ground clearance, and I found that thing woefully inadequate, because if the tire is dead flat, it is actually too tall to go up under the axle and lift it, and too short because at maximum extension, when I go all the way up and touch the frame to try to lift it, it only lifts the tire about 1 inch. I couldn't get the tire off because the tires will articulate down when the body goes up, right? From your owner's manual, familiarize yourself of where the lifting points are on your vehicle. This is important. The whole bottom of the vehicle is not a lifting point. And if you put a jack and go lifting up, you can bend the bottom of the car up. So find the lifting points to jack it up to change the tires. Better yet, excuse me, one Saturday or something when you got the weekend off, change a tire. Just practice one time to know where to do it and how to do it on your vehicle. Saves you a ton of money. It really does, knowing how to do it. But I've got that back there. Then I have a set of jumper cables right here. I have various fluids right there. I have a couple of funnels to be able to put stuff into positions. Then I have an emergency little umbrella, an entrenching tool to help dig me out. I have my Ranger roll right here, which, as you know, is a U.S. Army poncho. It is in a U.S. Army poncho liner, and then there is a reusable space blanket in there to make up a Ranger roll in case I break down. Inside of this are tent stakes, cords, and everything to set this up as a tent, whatever I need. Also, there's a knife in here. This is out of one of them Gerber knife sets. It's even got a ferro rod on it that you get at Christmas time or whatever. Excuse me, a Camillus. Decent knife, sharpened it up, rides in here. But Blackie, you like WC knives. You're right, and you ain't breaking into my car and getting a WC knife. So, this has multiple uses where I can use it in emergency if I'm broke down to set up a shelter right quick. There's a fire kit in here, so I can set up a fire to wait out till you come find me. See, I have got other supplies in here as well to get me through. In this little set, there's a couple of MREs. There's several other things put in here. Fire kits and all like that set up in that. And this is a British medical pouch of some kind, you know, and I've got a full cook kit in here and stuff like that, where I've got at least 48 hours I can keep me going right here. I also carry, in another place up under a seat, I carry a water bladder with 2 gallons of water, and I've got oil, transmission fluid, and power steering fluid back here in case of emergencies. Doesn't take up hardly any space. And in case I do run into a problem out there, I have the ability to troubleshoot the basic problem. Is it something I can repair myself here in the field? Like, is it just where a clamp's given up on a hose and I've got replacement clamps? Is it a relay or something I just need to tap so I can crank? Is it corrosion on battery terminals? Very, very common. No. Is it a tire that's just got a nail in it, and if I plug that and air it up, which I've got a little air pump, you don't see, it's up under a seat. I plug it in, it can power that. Any of those can get me back on the road quickly and easily as long as I've got the ability to do it. So, in conclusion, having a little bit of an insurance policy, of a few simple tools, of a little bit of knowledge of thinking about, you know, I didn't think about them putting them lug nuts on so tight I couldn't get them off, of having fluids to replace a minor leak, of being able to troubleshoot what's wrong with the vehicle, of preventative maintenance, of checking the fluids, checking the oil before I ever start out on my adventure, and being able to remember to drop it into 4-wheel drive once a month to keep all that lubed up and ready to go, so when I need it, it'll be there. is a great peace of mind. I'm including my vehicle not as just a conveyance, but kind of like a partner in this adventure. I know what's going on with it, and I have a good working knowledge of how to keep it in the field. Like the old mountain men and all, they knew their horses real well. Well, this iron horse, I need to know how to feed it, how to take care of it, and how to keep it in the road. That's the job. Hope you've enjoyed this content, guys. If you have, please hit that like, share, and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. And until next time, guys, I'm Blackie wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.